special good morning to Grenada, our sister Isles of Carriacou, Petit Martinique. Good morning. Welcome to another edition of To The Point. Today being Thursday. It's the 9th day of February within the year 2023. Welcome. You know what happens on a Thursday? That's when we do entertain the Royal Grenada Police Force, particular departments within the Royal Grenada Police Force. And this morning we do have that's Constable Troy Paul. Good morning to you. So let me say ladies first, but I'll just tripping with you first as you're closer to me. We have Corporal Daniel Andrews this morning. I want to say good morning to both of you and welcome.
Good morning.
And welcome. Thank you. Well, both this morning, they are of course from the traffic department of the Royal Grenada Police Force, which means our subject line this morning will be based a lot on traffic, more or less traffic offences that are happening around, so we can put some discussion into that this morning here on To The Point. Now, let's kick it off on this particular top line this morning. Speeding. It seems to be one of the problems that we are noticing, with lots of concerns due to accidents and stuff. Because most of the accidents that you notice in Grenada today, for one reason, you could know that's the main cause of the accidents. Could be human error, but speeding seems to be a problem in Grenada. How much of a concern is that with the traffic department of the Royal Grenada Police Force?
Good morning to all the listeners.
Good morning.
Speeding will always be a concern for the members of the traffic department and by extension the entire island or state of Grenada, because when one speeds it poses a problem because your vehicle will be accelerating at a speed and more so greater when you're talking about a speed greater than the speed specified in Section 58 of the Road Traffic Act, where the law of speeding comes in, and which states
any person who drives a motor vehicle of a class described specified under the fourth schedule at a speed greater than the specified speed in an order made in Section 59, subsection 1 commits an offence and shall be liable on summary conviction, to a fine of $1,000 or imprisonment for 12 months, or both the fine and imprisonment.
All right. So you could be fined $1,000 or you could be confined to prison.
Prison for 12 months.
For 12 months. What are some of the plans the traffic department and the Royal Grenada Force has in terms of curbing that problem in Grenada?
Well, from time to time, you see police officers out on the road doing speed checks with the radar Doppler gun. That is one way to curb the problem of speeding. So when we check for the speed, because different classifications of vehicles have to drive within different speeds on the road. So the public service vehicles and trucks are expected to drive within 35 miles per hour. That is out of the town.
All right.
And the private vehicles can go up to 40 miles per hour.
Right.
Within the town, all vehicles is expected to drive at 20 miles per hour.
When you say within the town, let's be a little bit specific. We're talking the town of St. George,
Yes.
Grenville.
Yes.
If you're inside a go of, you should not be going more than 20 miles per hour.
No.
Yeah, it shouldn't be good.
Yeah.
I mean, on any given day, is not even possible for you to be driving between any town more than 20 miles per hour. You know how the traffic congestions and so forth that we do experience from time to time, but you shouldn't be going. The regulations is that you shouldn't be going more than 20 miles per hour. When you say out of town, let's raise the definition first, especially for those who are listening out there right now, who may not maybe want to know what they mean out of town. Let's give me a definition of an out of town.
So like when you're driving within the parish, well, let's say you're coming down California Road, you can go at least
you can do that 40 miles per hour. And that's for private vehicles.
Yes.
All right.
And the public service vehicles and trucks, you can go up to 35 miles per hour.
Okay, great. We still want to spend a little time on speeding. Speeding is definitely a cause of concern. Let me, from you being members of the traffic department, what sort of advice you like to throw out, especially to drivers or motorists on the road? What advice would you like to throw to them to just cease the system? Because we just see it's becoming a wee bit unnecessary now, in terms of how we don't have the road capacity. I would say, for the speed that individuals want to go at. Our maximum speed limit that you just mentioned is 40 miles per hour. And that's maximum any individual can go, even though private, but and the maximum for goods vehicle and so forth, as you mentioned, is 35. What kind of advice would you like to throw, especially for drivers on the nation's road this morning?
And as you say, we don't have the road capacity for the speed that some persons will like to drive at. So we ask persons to be cautious on the road. There's potholes. Sometimes you're going so fast. As you're going, a hole may just pop up in front of you, and you have to swing away from that hole. When you drive at a speed greater than the speed limit, sometimes you lose control of that vehicle trying to swerve away from that hole, causing an accident, causing damages, or even death to other persons or yourself.
Yeah. You, of course, Constable Troy mentioned a while ago pertaining to, you know, the radar guns and so forth at the traffic department. How effective has that been?
Well, the radar guns is pretty effective.
You know, folks may say they are not seeing the police out doing it as much as they should in terms of to curb that problem. How tell us about why we don't see that as much as that happening as it used to. I remember back as a youngster just learning to drive, I used to be seeing a lot of police officers out with those radars and so forth. But me, for now, I've not seen it. Maybe I've not been in areas where they are doing it. You understand?
Maybe you're not in the area that the testing is being done, but it is being done.
All right. How effective has it been?
It is pretty effective. We have had convictions as a result of the testing.
All right. Interesting. Now let's get into another topic line there. We're talking about failing to comply. When you say failing to comply, give us a bit of a definition of that, or how you would like to explain that for an individual out there failing to comply.
Yes, and that failing to comply goes with traffic signs and signal.
Okay.
Not just failing to comply. You must fail to comply with something.
All right.
So then we're talking about failing to comply with traffic signs and signals. And I will start off with signals. Signals given by a police officer in the execution of his duty. And when we're talking about signs that are erected by the Commissioner of Police that says that you shouldn't do a particular, or you shouldn't go a particular place, or giving you a particular instruction or direction to be carried out as a driver while you're on the nation's road. And Section 83 of the Road Traffic Act speaks to that. It says that where a member of the police force in uniform is for the time being engaged in the regulation of traffic on a road where a traffic sign being a sign of the prescribed size, color, and type, or of another character authorized by the licensing authority under Section 78, and being a sign for regulating the movement of traffic or indicating the route to be followed by traffic, or when a notice of the Commissioner of Police under Section 82 has been lawfully placed, erected, marked, or otherwise issued or retained on or near a road, any person driving or propelling a vehicle, or any person riding or driving any animal.
That's an old R, right?
It is. So
I mean, it's just funny that you said the animal part of it. That just kind of grabbed my attention. There.
Yeah, so if you see a horse coming through town, and the police giving the horse direction, the rider of the horse have to follow this instruction as well. So, yeah, but that's how our laws were designed back then. Yes. So let's continue in relation to what Section 83 says. It says, any person who neglects or refuses to stop a vehicle or animal, or make a vehicle or animal proceed or keep to a particular lane of traffic when directed or signaled to do so by a member of the police force in the execution of his duty. Or B says, who fails to comply with an indication given by a traffic sign or notice when a member of the police force does not direct otherwise.
All right.
That person commits an offense and shall be liable on summary conviction to a fine of $500 or to imprisonment for 3 months, or both such fine and imprisonment.
All right.
So we're seeing two things coming out here. When a police is directing traffic and when a sign is erected, persons ought to comply with those directions and instructions.
All right. Now let's just buckle down on the traffic signs and signal for sales. Let's be specific on this for particular, because sometimes I, as a driver, I am concerned about the pedestrian crosses. As a sign that is on the ground, which allows, how does an individual really supposed to use pedestrian cross?
Yes, since that you jumped into the pedestrian crossing, I didn't really want to go into the pedestrian yet, but there's a lot to be discussed on that to come because as you mentioned it as a sign.
I'm referring it as a sign because it is a sign on it is painted on the ground that so I mean we're not getting it as in terms of talking about pedestrians for now, but I mean we're talking inside, but it is a sign, right?
Yes,
it could come under the line as a sign. All right. As a driver on the road, how am I supposed to comply with that?
How are you supposed to comply to that? Most of our drivers should be aware of where a pedestrian crossing in the state. It's not the first time you're driving on our nation's road. But however, there will be signs when you're approaching a pedestrian crossing or humps or whatever it is, that there will be signs telling you that there will be a pedestrian crossing ahead. Right. If not, as I said, your local knowledge of the road, you know that there's a pedestrian crossing ahead. You slow down when you're approaching a pedestrian crossing zone. When you're learning to drive, you slow down, even if no one is crossing or intend to cross.
All right. Okay.
However, if there is persons in the area, you come to a stop, and there is what we call a stop line that would be right in front of the pedestrian crossing, a little way to the actual pedestrian crosswalk.
Okay.
So the driver stop before that to allow pedestrians to cross if there is any pedestrian intend to cross from one side to the other side.
My question that will combine into this now, is it the directive of the driver to allow the pedestrian to cross, or did the pedestrian signals the driver that he wants to cross?
You see, we started off with driver, so we're going to continue with driver, and then we'll go to the aspect of the responsibility of the driver and the responsibility.
I'm just saying that in the perspective of the sign. You said that sign, a driver comes to the stop of it, and then whoever pedestrian, whatever. I'm just asking the question in terms of the directive of when you stop at the pedestrian. Who has the pedestrian cross? Who gives the directive there?
So the obligation of the driver, once you approach the pedestrian crossing and someone is intending to cross, you stop before that one line. So it's the obligation of the driver at that stage to stop.
All right, I get where you covered from there now. Now let's go back to traffic signals.
Yes.
So
the police directing traffic.
Yes.
We have as we say, kind of shield, where police directing traffic, and the police gives a direction to a driver, or a signal, as we may say before, where you might direct him to go left, direct him to go right, direct him to stop, or whatever instruction or direction that the police gives. And the driver failed to comply with those directions or instruction.
All right.
He can be charged, or even be arrested.
All right. So I'm a driver. I've been told to stop by the police officer, do not proceed, and I decide I'm still gonna, for whatever the
whatever reason,
whatever reason it is, and I could be arrested.
Yes, you could be arrested for failing to stop in that circumstance.
Okay. Is there any particular law that surrounds that?
Section 83, which I just made mention of. And,
probably I slipped on it when you were reading it there.
Yes, that's why I was reading all along to let persons know in relation to what the law says in relation to persons failing to comply when given a direction by a police officer in the execution of his duty. And more so, I know persons might say only police, but remember we have what we call traffic wardens. And we see a lot of the drivers are disrespecting them from time to time. And we want this practice to stop because they have the same powers under the Road Traffic Act and also under the Road Traffic Regulation, where they can direct traffic and give directions as a police officer in the execution of his duty. And you fail to comply with the instructions given by a traffic warden as well, the necessary actions can be taken in relation to someone being charged for the offense in relation to the breach.
Let's take a break. We come back and to chat some more. It's to the point for today, Thursday, the 9th day of February. We're coming right back after the break, folks. Stay with us.
I want you folks to play these 3 games from the NLA. Daily pick 3 cash flow and play with. You will be supporting sports and culture, nation building and our future. So go out and play, folks, make it a must. You will see what the National Lottery's doing for us. When you play Pick 3 Cash Flow and play with, the NLA will support you all the way.
Starting September 30th, Monday to Friday, these 3 games will be drawn mid-morning, 9:45 a.m., midday, 12:45 p.m., and evenings, 7:45 p.m. The National Lotteries, supporting sports, culture, and nation building.
Sunday money day.
Can't wait to see my granddaughter.
Welcome back to our listeners and viewers. To the point for today, Thursday, as I mentioned in the intro, on Thursdays, and I guess as you can note, if you have taken notice, that's why we entertain members of the Royal Grenadier Police Force. They were here this morning, the traffic department, and we've been spending some time in the last couple of minutes of the program. We've been speaking about speeding. We also, before the break, we were talking about failing to comply, with traffic signals and signs. Now, I want to just spend some time on signs. All right, we're going to spend a couple of minutes talking about signs. There are various signs from time to time that drivers do notice, and tell us about these signs from the traffic department point of view.
Yes, so as drivers, while traversing on the nation's road, you will see signs. Police notice, no entry. Police notice, no parking. Police notice, no trucks allowed, and you see these various signs from time to time. But what we see that persons are blatantly disrespecting those signs by not complying with the instructions to be carried out. So you will see a no entry, and you will still go through a no entry sign. You will see no parking, and you will still park. And in the Montmaris area, you see no trucks allowed, and the truck drivers will still continue to traverse on that road. Once that sign is erected, because the Commissioner of Police have the authority to erect signs where it is necessary, under Section 78, under Section 78, the Commissioner have authority under the Road Traffic Act to erect any sign necessary under the Road Traffic Act. And any person who fail to comply with those instructions, as I stated, is a breach of law and commits an offense. And we stated that they can be charged both fine and confined. Yes. So, but what lies here is because we want persons to comply with those instructions. Those signs are placed there for a reason. They no entry. There's a reason why a no entry is placed in a particular area. There is a reason why we tell you do not park in a particular area. There's a reason why we said no trucks allowed. But persons seeing those signs and blatantly have no regards for law and order.
And let's just slight diversion. The cones in the road is also a form of a sign.
Yes, the cones, because most of the times our cones are marked telling you do not park, and we re-emphasize on the cones, do not park. But you still see persons parking between cones.
In a layman's terms, what kind of consequences can derive to individuals for that? You didn't mention the law a while ago, but I understand this program is basically to educate individuals on the do's and don'ts.
Yes.
Before, sometimes you not always want to take the full law at the time, but one thing people are being educated in terms of what they should do and shouldn't do then whatever else happens is because of your disobedience or not complying.
Very well. So firstly, one can be charged. They can be ticketed for failing to comply under Section 83(2)(b). Right? One can be ticketed. Also, your vehicle can be clamped, and you have to pay the necessary fees so that your vehicle can be released. And mind you, when the police clamp your vehicle, and they are not responsible for any damages caused once it's not negligently or willfully done.
Okay.
Also, your vehicle can be towed away at your own expense. That is persons parking in no parking area and so forth. Prohibited areas.
All right.
But also, as we stated, that persons can be ticketed. You could either be get a ticket, or you can be taken by summons.
All right.
Yes.
All right. So those are some of the
consequences for the
that
action
for your
of
actions
failing
for
to comply with the necessary signs and
signs.
instructions that are given, that is placed by the Commissioner of Police for the regulating of traffic.
All right. So, folks, if you are a driver on the nation's roads, and I hope you certainly do understand that, it says a no parking sign, which means no parking.
No parking.
Or not even waiting.
As one would
say,
say,
I'm just staying here for a few minutes, I'm leaving now. That is not permitted also. Folks will see a no parking sign, and you say, well, I just want to stop here for a few minutes, although it says no parking, and that is not permitted.
No, it's not. Because the sign says exactly what it's intended to.
Yeah.
Do not park. Or as one ex-police would say, do park day. Do park day.
All right. Well, glad that we have got that particular section of the conversation this morning covered. Let's move to pedestrians using the road and the safety of pedestrians using roads. And this will combine with one of the questions I asked a while ago. It follows through on the pedestrian cross. I guess we'll talk about more about that and how pedestrians are to use the pedestrian cross.
Very well.
You understand? I'll give you all the leeway to go ahead and explain that to us. Pedestrians using the road and the safety of what's the safety practices that they should follow through.
Yes. So in recent times, we've seen the misuse of pedestrian crossings and person using the road network. Using the road. They're walking along the road and you see bad practices while using the road. When we're talking about pedestrian crossing, there's obligations from both drivers and pedestrians.
Okay.
Because we know the consequence of vehicle malfunctioning. So we want pedestrians more so to be safe when you're using the road network. You're crossing the road or using a pedestrian crossing. We will always advise you to cross in a pedestrian zone or where you believe that it is safe to cross. Also, we want pedestrians to use sidewalks if they are available. Because we're seeing a lot of pedestrians crossing and walking in the road, especially in the towns where the traffic is built up. But I just want to go to pedestrian crossing, and we'll emphasize on that for the sake of pedestrians. You have to cross, and you intend to use the pedestrian crossing, or you intend to cross the road. You go to that area, and firstly, you stop. Because a pedestrian crossing is a safe zone for pedestrians to cross.
All right.
Right? That is how it is designed. You go to that area, you stop. First thing you do, you stop. You observe your surroundings. Make sure that no vehicle is coming. As you said, you look left, you look right. You look left, you look right. Again. That is how safe you want to be when you're crossing.
All right.
If there is no vehicle approaching, you do not hear anything coming, you do not see anything coming, you cross briskly from one side to the other.
Okay.
And I will repeat that, you cross briskly from one side to the other.
I'm happy you say that, because sometimes, being a driver myself, you see individuals who are crossing the roads, using the pedestrian cross to go across, and they're taking their merry time. You understand? In some countries, that is called what? Jaywalking?
It wouldn't be termed jaywalking, not on the crossing. Yes.
But in terms of just taking their merry time to cross the pedestrian, like we have to wait on you, in
so
regular conversation, how folks would say it. You understand?
Yeah. So you see people taking their merry time or sauntering or maybe some might catwalk modeling across the pedestrian crossing. You cross briskly. That's why I re-emphasize on the word briskly from one side to the other.
Is there any law that governs how individuals should cross the pedestrian cross? Any laws that it can happen? You can say, well, the police see you walking, they're coming across the pedestrian crossing, you're taking your merry time. Is there anything that the police can do about that?
Unfortunately, we do not have any laws that surrounds pedestrian crossing and the use of pedestrian crossing. But I pray that pretty soon that we will look at it and we will have the necessary laws so that persons can comply with those instructions and you feel to consequences for those actions can be rewarded.
I mean, that would be interesting because, there are folks who straight up play the fool on the pedestrian cross.
Of course.
Just play the fool and then feel, well, as drivers, and suddenly sometimes they cause the obstruction of traffic by the way in which they are crossing. You understand? What are some of the other road safety tips for pedestrian that you would like to?
Yes. So I didn't finish with the pedestrian. I only said that.
I thought that was basically it.
If no vehicle is approaching, however, if a vehicle is approaching, you intend to cross, you simply lift your hand in the air, indicating to the driver or drivers that you intend to cross.
Okay.
Right. When waving to say, well, hi, good morning, you lift your hand nicely and you indicate to the driver, but make eye contact.
A way of alerting the driver
yes,
that you intend to cross.
Make eye contact.
Okay.
And then once that driver sees you, make sure that vehicle comes to a complete stop. And we spoke about the stop line earlier on. So that driver needs to stop before the stop line. Make sure that vehicle comes to a complete stop. Once that vehicle comes to a complete stop, you cross briskly again from one side to the other side.
All right.
Getting to your destination safely.
All right.
Because we don't want any mishap on the pedestrian crossing. So that is your obligations for the pedestrians using the pedestrian crossing or crossing any road.
All right.
For the drivers, as we stated, you're approaching a pedestrian zone, you slow down and you stop before that stop line or that line we have, right, in that pedestrian zone.
So is it that white line before the actual marking across?
Yes, that's what we call the stop line.
Stop line, that's where a driver's supposed to stop.
To stop, yes. So you do not create that fear or panic in persons using the road if you cross that, they're thinking that maybe you have brake failure or whatever. So stop before to avoid that. And you allow the pedestrian to cross. But however, if as a pedestrian you see a vehicle already cross that stop line, for your safety, do not cross.
Okay.
Allow the vehicle to continue, and when that vehicle continue, so you're already there, so you indicate to the other drivers attempting that you intend to cross, and you make sure they cross. They stop, before crossing.
All right.
And as I stated, also if there is no pedestrian crossing, you're crossing a place that it is safe. Visibility is clear, that you can see vehicles coming from both directions before you cross, and make sure the vehicle come to a stop, and it's the same procedure. And we also want pedestrians to use sidewalks if they're available, and do not give the traffic your back if you're walking in a particular direction. Also, persons who may want to jog and so forth in the night, if you have to do so in the night, have a bright colored clothing or reflective clothing so that drivers can see you when you're jogging or walking in the night. Because if you're walking in the night with dark colored clothing, it will be difficult for drivers to maybe notice you based on the direction or maybe the lighting condition at that particular
time. Or the particular area that you're walking, it may not be bright so that in terms of the raise the visibility for the driver. Even though the driver have the light, but sometimes the visibility is not at its best. So if you have bright colored clothing or reflective clothing, so that when the light flashes, it will reflect and the driver will notice that someone is walking or running or making use of the road network. All right. Anything further on pedestrian that you'd like to throw to the viewing and listening audience?
Yes, for the pedestrians, your safety is very much important. So if you're using the road network, make sure that it is safe to do so, crossing, jogging, whatever it is. Your life is important. So make sure you take the necessary precautions when using the road network, whether it be crossing, whether you may be jogging and so forth.
All right.
Your safety comes first.
All right. Let's take a break. We come back with another segment here on To The Point this morning. We're talking to the traffic department of the Royal Grenada Police Force. We're coming right back, folks. Stay with us.
It is important to know what your road signs and markings means. The zigzag lines means you should not park in the marked area. Parking is allowed inside the solid white lines on the edge of the road. Remember, look out for pedestrians. Pedestrians, be sure the vehicle comes to a complete stop before crossing. These tips can save your life. These tips can make our roads safer for all users. Be safe, be seen, be smart. A message from the Traffic Department of the Royal Grenada Police Force.
No, that's not how you cross the pedestrian crossing.
Really? One day I just woke up and I saw pedestrian crosswalks on the road. No one really showed me how to use them properly.
Well, this is how it's done. You never cross before doing these things. They might save your life. First, when you get to the crosswalk, you stop. You look left, you look right. If there's a vehicle coming, you put your hand out, making eye contact with the driver, indicating that you want to cross. And only when the vehicle comes to a complete stop, you quickly cross to the other side.
Stop, look, hand out, eye contact. Wait for pedestrian to cross to the other side, then you happily continue on your journey. This message is brought to you by this group of insurance companies, the Traffic Advisory Body, and the Traffic Department.
Welcome back, listeners and viewers, especially those who are listening via K105, Classic Radio. Those of you via GBN TV, it's to the point here on beautiful Thursday morning. And we with the Traffic Department of the Royal Grenada Police Force, we spent a couple minutes ago talking about the pedestrians using the road and how the safety practices that they should be following and so forth when using the road. Coming up in this segment also, we'll be entertaining your phone calls. If you have a question or two that you would like to ask the officers, you can certainly do that during this segment. All right. Now let's talk about. We've been hearing a lot about, road users, drivers per se, you understand, in the traffic. And it's my understanding now that the traffic department will be implementing, a process where, where the various tests could be performed on drivers in a state of maybe due traffic stops for whatever reason. I hope I'm following in the direction that you're understanding. Traffic stops, or if there's a particular accident that may that you need to perform particular tests. Are these things available within the Royal Grenada Police Force?
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm. As of 2019, the Royal Grenada Police Force has started using our breathalyzer machines. Persons have been trained and certified to operate those machines. Mm-hmm. Under Section 62B1A, the law states, any person who drives, attempts to drive, or is in charge of a motor vehicle whilst under the influence of alcoholic liquor or drugs to such an extent as to be unfit to drive or to be incapable of having proper control of the vehicle commits an offense and shall be liable on summary conviction, on the first conviction, to a fine of $2,000 or imprisonment for 12 months, or both fine and imprisonment.
All right.
On a second conviction or any subsequent conviction, a fine of $3,500 or imprisonment for 2 years, or both fine and imprisonment.
Go ahead.
On a first conviction, the court can disqualify one's driver's license for driving under the influence of alcohol for a period not less than 1 year.
All right.
On any subsequent conviction or a second conviction, the court has the powers to suspend the license again for a period not less than 5 years.
All right. Now, let me ask this question. Where does the breath analyzer test come into play?
So once a police officer suspects that someone may be under the influence of alcohol, you can submit them to a breathalyzer test with their permission.
All right. So the permission must be asked.
Yes,
first.
you must seek the permission of the person. They must give you consent to carry out that test. But if you fail to submit to a breathalyzer test, you may be arrested for the offense of failing to submit to a breathalyzer test. So we see the legal limit of alcohol in the state of Grenada as 70 micrograms to 100 milliliters of breath. 70 micrograms of alcohol to 100 milliliters of breath. So anything above 70 micrograms, you are considered to be driving under the influence of alcohol.
Okay. Now, how prevalent is that in Grenada? In terms of having to the traffic, but having to use that because they in their going about of your duties, notice someone have that particular effect, and how prevalent has it been?
Well, the use of the breathalyzer have been used very often. For the year thus far, I have tested at least 10 persons who was under the influence of alcohol from various circumstances, be it accidents or on suspicion of a police officer.
Okay. Interesting to know. We move from, I don't know if there's anything else you would like to add on the breath analyzer that you want to share with the listener probably before we move on to something else. That's basically, in a nutshell, that's what it is for now.
Yes.
All right. Let's talk about speeding. Speed meter, testing, and so forth. I think we touched on that briefly when we did start, the conversation this morning. We touched on that briefly. So, tell us about. I'm assuming radars and stuff the police use for individuals. Tell us about that process.
So before the radar gun is used, before the police officers start using the radar gun is calibrated and make sure that it is in good working condition. And once that is done, we start using the gun. The gun is placed in a position that you can read speed for vehicles coming towards you or vehicles that have passed you. And the exact speed that the vehicle is traveling at will be recorded by the gun.
All right. So as you mentioned earlier, a vehicle going over that 20 miles per hour within the town, if for some reason you have to do a speed test within a town, you understand? Out of town, it's 40 miles for private vehicles and 35 for good vehicle, 35 for good vehicles. So what's the leeway the officer will give if I'm just someone is driving 45? Is that a leeway, or there could be penalties for that? Could be penalties for if someone goes. I understand it's 40 miles per hour. Someone is driving 45. If there will be some penalty, or there will be some conversation that you will have, and a warning or so before.
Well, there isn't any leeway for.
I'm just saying it. I'm just saying that breaking it. I know it's still considered breaking the law.
It is an offense. Once you over the speed limit, it is an offense. But in various circumstances, persons may have various reasons. Different circumstances, persons may have different reasons. Sometimes you have an emergency, and you may have to drive above the
I guess
speed
you will
limit.
have that conversation with the police,
Yes,
and
the police
it may be
stop you
understandable for that.
and explain that you're driving over the speed limit. You can explain that you have an emergency and you're going.
All right.
But other than that, there isn't any reasonable excuse that one should be going over the speed limit.
All right. Let's talk penalties.
So as I said, for speeding, penalty is $1,000 or 12 months imprisonment, or both fine and confined.
All right. Well, in this segment, we get set to take a couple of your phone calls, and as questions here from the viewing and listening audience this morning. If you do have a question or two about the various topics that we spoke on already, you can feel free to ask the officers if they do, should they be able to answer you. Let's take our very first caller. Caller, good morning and welcome. Good morning to you, caller. Guess we have lost that caller there for some reason or the other. Caller, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. How are you doing?
Yes, not too bad.
All right. I guess you have a question for the officers.
Yes. In relation, the other day I was traveling along somewhere, and I was the speed bumps was not apparent. You couldn't see it. Boom, you jump over it, then you get to realize. And these things have to be marked. I think they're supposed to be by the police. So I'm calling on the authorities to do something about that. Now, I have a next one here, which is the people who is speeding behind you almost want to run into your vehicle fast when the traffic is on. Guy, not last night, the night before, a guy raced me down, trying to pass all around corner. And then after, still cost me. You know, these are the things that happen on the road, and then they call them things accident. Some of these things that happen are willfully done because they want to, they're busy. To me, like, when they get busy, they lose all their senses. When you're busy, you have to have your senses to contain your senses, but most of these drivers, like, they're losing their senses when they get busy. So they want to speed around corner, they want to overtake, they want to steal and still try to mash up their vehicle to pass. It can't happen. Not on the Grand Anse Road, because the traffic does not permit you to overtake 3 or 4 vehicles. If you overtake one, you still have to go behind one and wait in the line. So I don't know where they're trying to go. That's my contribution.
Thank you, caller. Thank you for your contribution. Any response to the caller's contribution this morning, officers?
Well, where there's speed bumps that is not painted, the Royal Grenada Police Force, we are doing our utmost best to have all those humps or bumps painted, being visible for motorists to see.
Okay. Let's entertain another caller. Caller, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Mr. GT, and good morning to the officers. Now, one of the officers there knows my good friend. You know how I call him? The Talking Police. Talking Police, good morning.
Good morning to you, caller.
So you know who is there. Now, I want to ask the lady officer a question before I get to my point. Officer, when I drive in past, every police I meet, I tell them good morning. I say, good officer, good morning. Those men will smile and wave. Why don't the ladies respond? They just look at you and they go. What is the reason of that? However, you will answer me in a little while. Think about it. Now, regarding this speeding and this and thing, I go tell you. I look at it that everything is a law and a stick on your head. As we are, we need the slave drivers behind us 24/7, day and night. It's time that we drivers come together, sit down, drink a cup of coffee, a bottle of water, and console yourself. Talk to yourself. Say, listen, man, too much accident. Innocent people getting killed. Let me do better than that. Man, yesterday I know I overtake on a corner. That was a bad thing. Somebody could have been killed. I could have lost my life. Drivers, let us come together and reason. Come now, let us reason. Reason with yourself, you all, ourselves. Mr. GT, don't drive and smoke and not smoke text and whatever. Officers, you're all doing it too when you're on duty or not. Please, reason with ourselves and put our lives first. And, we don't have to watch for the Prime Minister, the Commissioner of Police to beat us on the head. Thank you. Have a good one. Officer, next time when you see somebody say to you, Officer, good morning, answer me, eh? That's the lady.
All right. Thank you so much, caller, for your contribution this morning. Certainly said a whole lot there. Anyway, any response? Anything the caller said, or I don't think there's anything.
Yes, she said a lot, and in relation to road safety, and if persons were listening to her, I trust that they take a lot from what she said. Do not text while you're driving, obey the road traffic signs, and all the other things she said. So I just want to add with that, good job, caller, and thanks for your observation. Right. And I trust that the female officers would smile next time when they see you and when you say hi.
I hope so too. Let's go to another caller. Caller, good morning. Good morning to you, caller.
GT and your followers and to the two officers there. Probably the female officers only respond to male compliments, and the males respond to the females. That may be the trick. Very quickly, first of all, let me commend the officers. I think the Royal Grenada Police Force has come of age generally, and I think they're doing a pretty good job. I didn't hear all of the program, but the whole matter of the breathalyzer, I think it's very, very important, because I think to a great extent, a lot of it a lot of the accidents have a lot to do with alcohol fatigue and so. Because 40 miles per hour could be, I mean, it's quick, you know. And certain roads, and depending on the maneuver you're taking, and if it's around a corner and so. So people may not necessarily be exceeding the speed limit. You don't have to exceed the speed limit to be reckless. So if we're just looking at numbers, we may not be able to catch many people. And while I believe totally in the law and we should enforce it, I think discretion should be used in, especially with these radar guns. I mean, in the night, I mean, after hours, as we say, lots of recklessness. I don't know that the officers there with radar guns taking anything. And that's where a lot of the recklessness takes place. Yet, at 4 o'clock on the rush hour, there'll be people in the Morris Bishop Highway, people trying to get from work, people trying to pick up their colleagues from work, people trying to go to the airport. They're right on the speed bump before the airport. To me, this is counterproductive. We have to expect at certain places people may be under more pressure. I'm not saying they're right to break the law, but to go right before the airport and trace a man coming down to catch a flight and giving them a ticket, to me, this is not the best use of that equipment. The nights, I live in the south, and they burn tires, they blow out, they do all kinds of things. I don't know the police involved there. But the law must be observed, but there must be discretion and wisdom. Not at the rush hour. I don't think many accidents happen that time. I don't know if fatalities happen before in the nose of the airport. But we seem to look for soft targets, and we ignore the real perpetrators of law breaking. They get away. That's my contribution. But you're doing a good job. I must compliment you guys. God bless you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much. It's to the point, and I'm not sure if the officers want to respond to anything the caller didn't mention in the points that you were making.
Okay, the caller spoke about the timing that the radars will be done. But it's not a case that we're not doing radars at night or so, or we just doing it at a specific time, a specific place. Because the radars are done at all times and every area. But what we have, the problem that we have when we do, so the police will be out, we testing for speed and various, all other offenses and so. But we have persons, police is here, police is there. So then you'll find everybody is operating within the confines of the law at those times.
Okay.
As the police finish, everybody gets reckless again. So it's not like we're not doing what we're supposed to do and not out at the various areas and various
I get your point. I mean, if I do see a police officer and I know that I'm not supposed to be driving over a particular speed limit, I'm supposed to be wearing my seatbelt, I will comply with everything that that has to do. And then when most folks will say, well, after you don't see anybody, you free up.
Yeah, you
understand?
Do whatever you want.
You do whatever you want. So I understand from that point. Let's go back to the phone line and entertain another caller. Caller, good morning and welcome. Good morning to you, caller. Caller, good morning. Well, good morning to you, caller.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Thank you very much, and good morning, greetings to your guests. Listen, Mr. Telesford, 2 observations. I begin this one because I've been trying to reach the commanding office of the traffic department from time to time. Certain things have been happening to me as a visually impaired person, well-versed in my mobility. In the entrance of Lacalome, the village of Lacalome, there's supposed to be a bus stop park there on the other side, on both sides, pardon, and there's a pedestrian crossing. Seemingly, something is happening there because I stand on the bus stop because I have my marks, referential marks with my steps, and I position myself on them. But the buses leave me there and they stop further up. When we're going down, they leave me standing on the bus stop and they stop higher up, a couple of meters away. And I am left standing there. So one thing appears to me is that the markings probably are being erased. I'd like you people to look at that, please, and, reinstate the markings quite correctly. There's another thing that I've observed. I do cross the road with maneuvers and making my noise with my whistle. Vehicles pass immediately behind me while I am on a so-called pedestrian crossing. I'm saying this because it is not the first time I've been out of Tenson recently, but I'm back. And I'm noticing this again, so I'm warning that if I'm knocked down on a pedestrian crossing, we know who will be responsible. No. To end. My understanding that where there are pedestrian crossing, there are supposed to be zigzag lines on both sides at a certain distance and so on with restriction lines also that the vehicles stop there and not come up upon the pedestrian crossing. Seemingly that doesn't occur in St. George's. I'd like you people to look at that also. Now, finally, I understand that there's some street lights being put up in St. George's again. Hopefully these will function. But I've also noticed, and upon inquiry from the police department, the community relations department, and the Ministry of Communication, the work, or it's now called infrastructure, no decisions have been taken as to how people with visual impairment, trained in mobility, like me, can recognize these pedestrian crossings. So I'm saying this here publicly and calling upon the authority through your gentleman and lady there that this matter be seriously taken into consideration. How do I know when I'm on a pedestrian crossing or a traffic light so that I can cross the road comfortably as established by international law for my right to accessibility? I trust that my complaints have been taken into consideration and that the necessary action be taken. Thank you very much and have a nice day with you, Mr. Telesford.
Thank you also, sir. Have a great day yourself. I guess you heard some of the complaints, some of the comments that were made by the call. Anyone you want to respond to?
Yes. Thank you, caller, for your complaints and your observation. We noted them, and therefore we'll look into them and make sure that we can rectify those errors that we see happening on our nation's road. As it relates to the caller, what the caller spoke of in relation to Lacalome area, especially where buses and so forth, and him crossing the pedestrians and drivers are not complying with the markings and so forth on the road. Maybe what we can do is maybe revisit that area and see how best we can make that area more safely and pedestrian friendly for persons using that road as well. In our tongues, I know he mentioned in relation to the pedestrian crossing having zigzag line and so forth. As I've stated earlier on, we do not have any laws in relation to pedestrians crossing. However, we use the basic standard in relation to erecting pedestrians and so forth, where we have the crosswalk with persons that walk from once and we have the stop lines. However, we know that these in the metropolitan countries, the bigger countries where you have the zigzag lines where for drivers not to park within those lines, it is also considered to be a sign that says no parking. However, these signs or markings or so forth is not a customary practice here, but it is something that we can look into as a nation going forward. And as I mentioned, maybe in the distant future we may have laws that governs the use of pedestrian crossing, and persons failing to comply will have consequences for the actions of the misuse. But for now, we're working with the regular ones that we have, but what we trust that drivers do comply in relation to stopping and allowing pedestrians to cross safely. As the caller will allow, so that he wouldn't have any fear while using the pedestrian crossing.
All right. Thanks for your comment there. Let's take another caller. Caller, good morning, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you so much for taking this call. I'm not too sure if it was addressed before, but I just wanted to speak about the congestion that takes place around the area by Knights Auto World. I know that it's something that the police have been battling for a while, but it is ridiculous. I stayed in traffic for about 10 minutes recently with about 3 trucks in front of me carrying load because a driver chose to park on the outskirts rather than go in the parking lot. What are you trying? I just want to know what the police plans to do about that situation. Thank you.
Thank you also, caller. Any response to the callers?
We are aware of the situation by Knights Auto World, and in recent times there are signs placed there, no parking signs, standing signs, and also there have been no parking painted on the ground. The necessary actions have been taken in that area. We have seen persons being ticketed, vehicles being clamped there, but from time to time persons will still disobey those signs and park outside there.
All right.
But once we are on the road and there are vehicles parked on the road there, we deal with it because it's a problem when we have a vehicle parked there for the traffic.
There'll also be some concern in terms of vehicles who cause the obstruction on roads. For example, there are particular areas where on mornings, I understand individuals may have their home there, but they park their vehicle in front of their house, right? And their house is almost less than 3 or 4 foot away from the road. And that becomes an obstruction for traffic, especially in the morning. And there's a particular area. I don't want to call the area right now, but I don't know whether the police could think about putting some attention into that in terms of maybe there are some parts of the world where you have a time factor for parking. These things could be probably put into consideration. Maybe you can park there from midnight to 5 a.m. in the morning. I understand it's your home where you live, but then it becomes a problem where you obstruct the traffic in the morning. Then when the traffic builds up, and if it's between 7 a.m. and so forth, when everybody's deciding to go to work and the different, and then because you are parked right there, no, you obstruct the traffic, which causes that lengthy backup of traffic. And I think that's something the police could be probably start looking into. Maybe offer time limits for individuals parking in particular areas at a certain time of the day and so forth. And maybe that could be considered. Oh, nobody responding. All right.
Yes, so the traffic department is a concern that we have almost every day along our nation's road, and as you said, there are certain places that is frequent. As I said, I don't want to mention those places, right? But there's places where we see that a lot of those happening, and we are trying our best to curb those practices, because obstruction, 1 minute or 2 minutes of obstruction is a lot, especially with the influx of vehicles that we have in our country, and it poses a big challenge for persons going to work, persons in the business community who operate a business, and they say time is money, and persons negligently or willfully prevents the free passage of motor vehicles in a particular area. It's an offense. Plus, as the corporate alluded to, they can be ticketed, they can be clamped, or your vehicle can be towed away at your own expense. But most so, we just want persons to comply with what the law says regarding to obstruction. If you know, because sometimes you might park at a particular place or time, and there is no obstruction at that particular time, but you might turn your back, and within a split second or two, there's a build-up of traffic, and then you wonder where all these vehicles come from, and then it impedes person getting to their destination. Someone might have an emergency, someone might go in for a job interview, and they depending on time.
I understand.
So be mindful when we use our word.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you look at the lack of consideration. I mean, there's also the option where I noticed a driver a few days ago on the road where he stopped to use his cell phone. You understand? But he stopped the road is already narrow. He stopped. I understand they say don't drive and use your cell phone. And I think we had a conversation about the last time that you were here. You should pull out of the road or pull outside. But he stopped, obstruct the traffic, and been there for the last 5 minutes or so talking on his cell phone, which is impeding the movement of traffic. You understand? So everybody has to wait behind him now. They can't take over because the traffic on the other direction is coming. And he just stopped using his cell phone. I mean, think about not considering for the road users.
No consideration for the drivers.
Let's take another phone call. We have a few minutes more left before we wrap. Good morning to you, caller.
Yes, good morning. No, my concern is that it's not that the laws are not there and the markings on the roads are not there. The problem is we don't have enough traffic officers on the street to apprehend those who break the law. And that may not be possible, though. I mean, we have so many officers and they have other things to do. So you can't really patrol the whole area all over the time, at all times. So what I would suggest is that, all drivers should be given the permission to report another driver when they see something wrong. Take their license plate and report them so that the officer could follow up, or the traffic department could follow up on the person and state that they were observed breaking the law at certain time. And so this is what I would like to happen, because you cannot patrol everywhere. The police, they don't have enough men on the ground to put them, and people are going to break the law. The law is there and the markings are there, but they're not being Nobody is there to apprehend those who break the law. And so maybe I really think that when you get your license, you should be authorized to make not an arrest, but to make a report on when you see another driver breaking the law. How about that? Thank you.
Thank you, good caller. Officer, I'm not sure if you want to respond to anything the caller said, but we also about time for us to wrap for this morning. We have gone over the time just a few minutes. Any final comments you would like to throw to the viewing and listening audience before we take a wrap for today?
So just to answer the caller's or question or comments or concern that you raise, yes, as drivers, as a concerned citizen of the state of Grenada, you have an obligation as well to report infractions of the law. You see drivers are speeding, driving recklessly in a particular area, causing obstruction or whatever offense or breach of laws and regulation of the state. You have an obligation to report them as well. Provide us with a statement, provide us with the necessary information so that we can investigate the matter and take the necessary action against the person. You've witnessed it.
All right.
Let us know. Let us take the action.
All right.
That is your obligation as concerned citizens of Grenada.
All right. Any closing comments from both of you before we take a wrap this morning? We spoke about speeding, failing to comply, pedestrians on the road. We talk about the breath analyzer. We talk about the speed meter testing and so forth. Any final comments? Any final bit of information you want to share before we take a wrap for today?
I would like to urge persons as we go along, let us work together to make the road of Grenada safer. As civilians and the police, let us come together as one to make the road safer. Persons, you are urged to drive within the speed limit, observe the road signs and signals as we go along. If you have to drive, if you have to drink and drive, stay within the limit. Do not overdo it, because sometimes the last drink you take, it might just be
the last one you may have.
The last one you may have. So let us be responsible in our consumption. And if you have to drink, don't drive. Have a designated driver. And if you're driving and you realize that it comes to a point that you're not seeing clearly or you're not making the right decisions on the road, we urge you to pack up. Pack up, relax yourself, and then go again.
All right. Constable Paul?
Yes, we spoke a lot this morning, and we trust that persons take the necessary road safety tips and apply them on your day-to-day duties, both as drivers and pedestrians. Drivers to comply with the instructions and direction given, and as pedestrians, let us use the road properly. I just wanted to steal the tourism slogan, road safety is everybody's business. So let us play our part as both drivers, pedestrians, and even concerned citizens. Report those offenses we see along our roads, and let us do our part to make our roads safe for all road users.
All right. Once again, thank you, both officers, for being with us this morning. Fruitful information been shared to the general public, and thank you once again. Hope we could do this another time and share even more information to the viewing and listening public. Hey, viewers and listeners, that's what we say goodbye for To The Point today. We've been a little bit over time, but of course, it was necessary. Until we have another edition for you, I want to wish you all a wonderful day, and join us again for another edition of To The Point.